Welcome to SportsBeat Live. It's Friday, one day later than we usually operate this program. That's because the Chiefs are playing on Monday Night Football, I believe for the only time this year. Got some Thursday nights, got some Sunday nights, but this is the only Monday night game. But what a game it is. Chiefs at the Ravens, the two teams that are favored in the AFC. I think that if the at least by the odds in the preseason and by the odds makers today after a couple weeks in the season. So we are here to talk Chiefs. We're here to take your questions, respond to your comments, and we're here to do it with my buddies and the best coverage team in town when it comes to the Chiefs. Got Herbie Tiopi.
I'm glad they got the star right on top of me because you got all the Army stuff behind me. Captain America, baby.
Appropriate that the star is in your block. Vahe Gregorian is here. Hey, Vahe.
Hey, Blair. Great to see everybody. That's all I'm going to be saying today because my horoscope said I should keep my thoughts and opinions to myself.
Okay, Beth, take Vahe out, and we'll go right to Sam McDowell. Hey, Sam.
What's going on, guys? I don't have nearly anything nearly as clever as I have to say here.
All right, so we're done with Sam. Hey, Melly, how you doing?
What's up? That intro is amazing.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That was Neil. Neil put that together, and that's pretty cool.
Man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, got us a game this Monday night. Got a little bit of a game going on in Baltimore. No fans, but two great teams on the field. Let's start where we always do, or try to do anyway, and that's with the news and some injuries. One of the reasons we're doing this on Friday and not our usual Thursday spot was so that we could hear some Andy Reid and some players speak on Thursday. The Chiefs schedule, because it's a Monday night game, got pushed forward today. Typically, Andy and Patrick Mahomes and some players would talk on Wednesday. That didn't happen this week. They waited until Thursday. So Thursday was the first day of the injury report, and we had two that did not practice on Thursday, but some others did. So Herbie, take us through the injury report. Tell us who did not work out on Thursday and what are prospects for some of the guys returning.
Yeah, you've got some good news and a bad news scenario here, obviously, with the Chiefs. Alex Okafor, the hamstring injury, he suffered that in week 1, did not practice. He also didn't play in week 2. But the big one there is wide receiver Sammy Watkins. Big hit early in the fourth quarter in week 2, knocked him out of the game. A hit that Coach Andy Reid said, hey, he thought it was very questionable. But he's in the concussion protocol. Andy Reid said it's more his neck than his head. But the fact that he's in the protocol with 3 days before Monday night, I don't know if he's going to be cleared in time to play. They did welcome back Charvarius Ward, their starting cornerback on the the left side. He was observed with a huge mitt on his left hand, but he put in a limited practice. Darrell Williams, the running back, also a limited practice. He did not finish week 2's game. Frank Clark is back to a full practice, so that's big. He left week 2 with an illness. And also another big injury there as far as the cornerback depth is concerned. Antonio Hamilton, who suffered a groin injury in that first half against the Chargers, was able to put in a full practice. So that bodes well for the cornerback position with Hamilton and Ward practicing on Thursday.
Okay. And how effective can a cornerback be with a hand that's bandaged? I guess we've seen it before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And then there's a lot of instances around the NFL where cornerbacks, defensive backs have played with a cast or a bandage around their hand. All he needs to do is be able to defend against the pass. It's obviously going to affect maybe how he tackles, but Ward is obviously their best cornerback. And as long as he's able to get on the field, that's going to give the Ravens something to think about. And
the news was good with, I guess, good with Sammy Watkins, right? I mean, that it's basically gone from thinking of it as a concussion to maybe just a neck injury, right?
Well, the thing is, they're going to err on the side of caution here because he is in the concussion protocol. He's going to have to be cleared by independent doctors before the Chiefs allow him to get back on the practice field. Obviously, we should know more after Friday's practice. But if he's not out there, you have to think they're going to maybe shut him down, save him for week 4.
Yeah. And so let's just say he doesn't play on Monday night. That elevates who? Byron Pringle, Marcus Kemp, either one, both. I mean, I don't know how many offensive snaps either one has taken this year, but I don't, the position is so strong anyway. I don't know if if there's a big drop off from Sammy Watkins.
I don't believe so either. And here's the thing: McCole Hardman last week had a lot of snaps after coming off week 1 where he hardly saw the field. So they do have depth there. I know Patrick Mahomes on Thursday was asked how comfortable he was throwing to Byron Pringle and Marcus Kemp. And Mahomes actually mentioned the depth of the wide receivers. They've practiced with him. He knows them. Pringle's been in the system. This is his 2nd year. Marcus Kemp has been with the team for a couple of years as well. So I don't think there's going to be that big of a drop-off.
Okay, and one more sort of housekeeping point of order here. The return of Mike Pennell, probably no small thing in this game. He comes off his 2-game suspension. He is going to they're going to put him on the field against one of the better rushing games in the NFL. I look, it's got to be rusty, right? But good to have Mike Pennell back.
And here's the key thing, and it's also good you are getting Mike Pennell back, because when you consider Colin Saunders is on injured reserve with the elbow injury, the Chiefs gave up 183 yards last week against the Chargers. In last week's meeting in week 3, the Ravens gashed the Chiefs for 203 yards and 4 touchdowns. This was before Mike Pennell. When Pennell arrived in midseason, the Chiefs started clamping down against the run. He's a good run stuffer, so you got to have him in there.
Plus, I got this little this email, not a little, but an email today from the Ravens. Maybe you guys got it too. Just sort of some notes from the Ravens at the end of the week. And here it reads: since Lamar Jackson became Baltimore's starting quarterback, the Ravens offense has rushed for at least 200 yards in 15 different games. This output triples the NFL's next best figure with 5, which is the Titans. So 15 games, I think it's out of about, 30? I think it's 33 for Lamar Jackson starts. 15 times they've rushed for over 200 yards. And I don't know, if you're looking for ways to, looking at reasons to find a Ravens advantage here, this would seem to be one of them. Let's just talk about that for a second. Where Baltimore can hurt the Chiefs in this game. Look, Baltimore has done some good things. Ravens have done some good things to the Chiefs against the Chiefs here in the last 2 years. Chiefs have come out on top in both games, but it just seems to me that Baltimore is built in a way that well, look, they've won 14 straight regular season games. They do this to every team, but they definitely have an advantage in the running game, and that is someplace where the Chiefs have proven vulnerable. Am I not right about that?
You can let Melly take this one, because it seems like every week he always tweets out, "There goes that run defense." Take it away, Melly.
Yeah, they haven't really stopped the run in like 3 or 4 years, and I keep waiting for a team to just pound it. And I'm talking about
stay
like
with
30,
it.
Yes, exactly. I'm talking about like 30, even 40 called run plays. And there's been teams occasionally that we see that do it, and then they get away from it when they get down a touchdown. And I just look like every NFL coach knows, a million times more about the game than I ever will. But it just seems logical to me that you should stick with the run as long as you possibly can. That down a touchdown does not matter. That is because it's 2 things. It keeps Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and everybody else off the field, and it's also the most effective way to move the ball against the Chiefs. And now, Chiefs fans won't like to hear this, but maybe that's a little bit different if Charvarius Ward doesn't play. Certainly, Bashaud Breeland's not going to play. Maybe and Mike Pennell is going to play, so maybe you have some other options, more down the field. And Lamar Jackson is a hell of a passer. We talk about his legs all the time, but he is a hell of a passer as well. But I keep waiting for a team to just pound it. And the Ravens are uniquely positioned to do that. They have, 3 starting caliber running backs, and that doesn't include Lamar Jackson, who might be a better runner than all of them.
I don't know if this was the last time it happened, but it's one of the more memorable times that it happened was in the 2017 playoff loss to the Titans when the Chiefs were down 21 to, or the Chiefs were up 21-3 at halftime. And Tennessee, look, they got the freaky touchdown pass to himself to Marcus Mariota, but really that game in the second half was defined by Travis Henry and what the Titans did on the ground in the second half of that game.
You mean
Yeah, and
Derrick
some
Henry.
defensive backs lined up as defensive ends against an overloaded Titans offensive line. That was easy to see.
Hey, well, I mean, it bears mention, obviously, the last time, I mean, they've played them since, but the last time the Chiefs lost was really because of the running game, right? I mean, Derrick Henry in Nashville.
Yeah.
I know, again, they played again since, but I think there is a bit of, look, a book is going to be forming on the Chiefs one way or another. And it turns out it's not just, Andy Reid and his staff and then the rest of the league is the Three Stooges. I mean, they're going to keep working at it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves over time. And I thought the Chiefs showed some vulnerabilities with their tackling and stuff just last week. Maybe that gets better as the season goes along a little bit, but they had a lot of chances to stop people in the backfield last week or, just with good angles on hits that you would have thought would bring people down and didn't.
That was I'm sorry to jump in, but Terrence, I forgot his last name. The comment that just popped up. I thought.
Yeah,
that was
Terrence Mornell Robinson, one of our great readers here. It's a terrific comment, isn't it? I was going to bring that up. Go ahead.
Really smart point that he just made about the Ravens being positioned to attack those linebackers. I could not agree with Terrence more about that sort of being the weak spot of the defense, and you can attack them like he's saying, just both in coverage. Mark Andrews is a dangerous tight end, and that gets into the run game as well. And again, the Ravens, like they say, like styles make fights, right? And I feel like not just the two best teams in the NFL, and I do feel like these are the two best teams in the NFL, but the styles that they play, I think, are sort of just well positioned for just a really interesting, fun to watch matchup. I can't wait. And that again, Terrence's point about the linebackers is a really smart one.
To that point on the linebackers, I'm going to jump in here. This is why getting Mike Pennell back is going to be huge. If you remember during the second half of last season, a lot of defensive players were saying having him in there and his ability to command double teams frees up the linebackers to flow to the action. And I don't think we saw a lot of that in these last two games because they were able to shed Colin Saunders and maybe even Tano Passanio or even Tershawn Wharton because the last two players I mentioned there are natural defensive ends. Now you have a natural run stuffer who does all the dirty work, the stuff that doesn't show up in the stat sheets. He's able to command those double teams and free up the flowing action behind him. And I think this should help them a lot having Pennell back.
Yeah.
To me, though, that's against a normal running team. The Ravens run the ball differently than everybody else in the NFL does. And to me, the keys are going to be the defensive ends because the Ravens run so much read option that I think Frank Clark defends that play pretty well. But the Chiefs are going to be playing a lot of Mike Dana on the other end. How many guys like Lamar Jackson has he ever seen in his career? Probably zero. So to me, that's going to be a key matchup and probably one that the Ravens are going to try to exploit is whatever side Dana's lining up on.
Tell you what, he had a heck of a play though when against the Chargers, didn't he? When
he did.
When he didn't bite on that play fake and took the fullback out and got the sack. That was as good a defensive play as I've seen the Chiefs make this year. That was just a terrific play. So maybe he's a little bit mature beyond his years, but you're right, Sam. Nobody defends a player like Lamar Jackson. He's just terrific. One thing about him though. I keep hearing that you can't the Ravens are at quite a disadvantage when they fall behind because it's just not the type of offense that can play from behind. I remember the game at Arrowhead 2 years ago, right? It was Jackson's fourth or fifth start. They got behind big. I'm sorry, it was last year's game. Did they get behind by a couple of touchdowns and Jackson brought him back and the Chiefs needed to pick up a critical third down to keep the drive alive and keep the possession. So I think this Ravens offense can do damage from behind, from in front. I just think it's and we certainly have seen in the first two games they've just toyed with the Texans and I forget who they played the opener,
Browns.
But the Browns, right? So, but okay, so let's talk about where the Chiefs can hurt the Ravens and. A lot of folks are talking about have we seen the Chiefs at their best? Has Andy Reid really opened up his playbook? One thing for sure is that in these last 2 years they have played Baltimore really, really well. Now, and they've won, but emerged with victories in both games. I don't know if the Ravens are better this year than they were last year. The Chiefs are better this year. I don't know. The game is at a different venue. That makes a difference. It's going to be played in front of no fans. I think that makes a difference. Could make a difference. But where can the Chiefs hurt the Ravens, and where have they done so in the past? Anybody?
Well, I think we've been talking a lot about the injuries that the Chiefs have that are going to make things a little bit more difficult. The Ravens, Tavon Young is a really good cornerback, and he's hurt. He's not going to play, and that screws with their defensive rotation. They've got some guys that they felt like can sort of stop Travis Kelce, which is obviously an important thing. But now those guys need to play on the outside. It just that screws with them, in a very important way that I think the Chiefs can exploit. They also obviously, I mean, the Chiefs are going to have, no matter who they're playing, right? They're going to have an advantage. Sorry, they're going to have an advantage. I'm going to hit mute real quick.
I want to chime in and say that Sam's kids talking got my dogs to bark. So we got a great combination going here.
What's the most sensible thing we've heard from anybody today? So.
Let's just say that we would have needed a different rating on this show.
Well, all I know is that there are people in the Kansas City media calling for Mahomes to be benched. At least that's how I understood it on Twitter the other day. Hey, look, I do think this though. Patrick hasn't played his best game. He's been, and it really is interesting. We've seen a couple questions come up about the difference in the line play from game 1 to game 2, and obviously at some level that's just about who they were playing, right? But I do think it always starts up front, and what I don't know now is what really should make of the line at this stage.
Well, the Ravens got some guys on the defensive line. So that's going to be a key matchup again. But what makes the Ravens so unique is they bring blitzes in different manners than probably any other team in the NFL does. And Patrick Mahomes said last year he saw a look from the Ravens that he had seen only once on tape before. Now, I do think that's probably where Patrick Mahomes has improved most since he came into the league to now is recognizing things that perhaps he hasn't seen before, some off-script stuff, and maybe that gives him more of an advantage against the Ravens than the average NFL quarterback. But you can bet that the Ravens – I mean, John Harbaugh said it. Herbie and I were on the call this week that they do view this game as a big-time game. You know, you don't often hear coaches say, yeah, this game means a little bit more than another game. But he basically said that. He said it's a primetime game. We know these guys are the defending champs. We know we're going to have to beat these guys at some point. So I think we're going to see some unique stuff defensively from the Ravens that even unique to us, but also unique to Patrick Mahomes as well.
Here's my biggest takeaway from the two games, and I know there's a lot of concern out there about the Chiefs' offense, but it's a matter of them adjusting to how the defense is playing them. This is 2 straight games where we've seen the defense play 2 safeties back, and they're playing them deep. And that's one thing that we've always heard on these post-game press conferences is, yeah, they're taking away the deep ball. Don't be surprised. I mean, the NFL is 100% a copycat league, and you know the Ravens defense has the personnel to do that, obviously. So they're probably looking at how the Chargers were able to slow down this Chiefs offense. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they're all playing back.
I like the point that Kyle Coffey just made that Mahomes is great against blitzing. Ravens blitz a ton. Chargers had success dropping back and rushing forward. That's exactly right. So the Baltimore does blitz a lot, and then so they play man in the back, and that's why Mahomes has had 2 terrific passing games against the Ravens. I think I figured out 2 of his top 7 in terms of passing yards have been against the Ravens, and I want to say without an interception. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he has picked apart the Ravens secondary. So. This is the ability to get the ball out and find the hot receiver. I do think we're going to see a defense play the Chiefs differently than we did the Texans and the Chargers that try to keep the Chiefs in front of them the entire time. I don't know if that's going to be the case with the Ravens. One thing we do know about the Ravens is they have a certain cornerback that will just absolutely delight in meeting the Chiefs on Monday night, and that's Marcus Peters. And Chiefs have already played against him once, and that was against the Rams in that crazy Monday night game. And Peters had a pick in that game. I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus had a big moment. I don't know if he's going to have a big game, but Sam, can't you see him having a big moment in this game?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he's obviously like a very emotional player. Not as emotional as he was when he was 22, 23 or whatever, but he thrives on that. He uses it for good. And I think that it's a respectful thing with him. He has a lot of friendships in that locker room with the Chiefs still. He has a lot of respect for, Mahomes, obviously, and Tyreek Hill and those guys. But, there's no question that we were just talking a couple minutes ago about how I think, Herbie, you brought up the point about you don't hear coaches talk often about, this regular season game means a little bit more. Sure as hell know that it means a little bit more to Marcus Peters. There's no doubt about that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that was McDowell that brought up that point, but I was the one who asked the question to Harbaugh. Shout out to Darren Smith.
Look, the Ravens are going to play like the Ravens play. I think they're a team that makes. I mean, everybody in the NFL makes adjustments based on who they're playing, but the Ravens are a team that more so says you adjust to us. And I don't know which commenter made the point on here, but yeah, the Chargers only blitzed 2 of like 48 Chiefs dropbacks last week and still got pressure. I think Mahomes is going to be pressured often because the Ravens are going to bring more guys. And so they're going to have one-on-one matches with Marcus Peters throughout this game. And I don't know. I think, Marcus Peters going for the big play, I think could open up some things deep that the Chiefs haven't seen in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's going to have big plays both. I mean, that's what Marcus does, right? Like he'll make an interception that you think, oh my God, how do you do that? And then he'll give up a big play when he's trying to make an interception too. It's going to, styles make fights, man. This is, I cannot wait. This is such a good matchup.
Okay, let's go ahead, Vi.
No, sorry. Just kind of the thing that I lament is that if Marcus does what we think he might and plucks a ball and punts it into the stands, Sam, you're not going to have Dustin Colquitt to ask to break it down anymore. It just shows that times have changed.
Yeah, that story's been done.
Only by you. And only the right way.
Let's talk about the Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson battle here. Melly, I know that you have written. I don't think it's been posted, but not in print yet, about the rivalry that is Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson, the previous 2 MVPs. It got me thinking when I heard you were going to write it. It got me thinking, well, this would be interesting. I wonder if I could come up with great quarterback rivalries in NFL history. And the fact is, after Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, there wasn't anything like that before. There have been some Super Bowl meetings and some others where like great quarterbacks played at the same time and their teams played against each other, but it wasn't defined or shaped as a quarterback rivalry the way Brady versus Manning was, and I think the way that Mahomes Jackson is going to be. Tell us about what you wrote and why you decided to get into that topic.
Yeah, I mean, look, what I feel in my heart is that, I mean, this is going to be the rivalry that defines the next 10 years. I mean, I know like the NFL changes week by week and projecting anything longer than a month or a year at the most can make yourself look pretty silly, but it's set up. It's set up perfectly. I mean, Mahomes is 25. I think Lamar is 24. They're not just both great quarterbacks, but they both have great head coaches. They're playing for good organizations that are going to surround them with talent. I mean, all the pieces are in place for this to be the rivalry that defines the next 10, 15 years of the NFL the way that Manning Brady did. And more than that, God, I hope that's the case. You know what I mean? Because it is such a fun, right? It's basically like Manning Brady, but with better highlights. You know what I mean? Like these are super smart, accurate, good passers, all that stuff, and also just insanely athletic, creative. I mean, these guys are doing things that we haven't seen quarterbacks do before. And the fact that they're in the same conference, they're going to be, both those teams are going to be playing a lot of first place schedules, I think. And they're also hopefully going to meet in the playoffs a lot too. It's just, it is set up to be one of the most fun things about the NFL for a very long time.
One of the more confusing things to me is just the doubt that surrounds Lamar Jackson. And I understand that his first year he lost a playoff game, but at that point, it seemed like everybody thought, okay, well, he's played a team twice and he's been figured out. But then he did it again last year, and he won the MVP last year in a runaway. He deserved to win the MVP last year. Now coming into this year, for whatever reason, you still heard the same thing that, but he didn't do it in the playoffs, so he's been figured out. He can't win in the playoffs because of his style. And I know we haven't seen a quarterback or anybody play the quarterback position the way that Lamar Jackson plays it, at least not successfully for a sustained period of time. But to me, the guy every single week has been proving those people wrong. So I don't understand the doubt that this guy can't last, because everything that he's done so far proves that he can.
He's really good too. He was so much better. Obviously, he won the MVP. He was so much better last year than he was the year before, and kind of a partial season. And he's a better passer now than he was even last year when he completed, I think, like 67% of his passes, something like that. I mean, he just looks so confident. He's thrown through tight windows, anticipation throws. I mean, it's something. It's something to behold. I mean, I linked it in the column. He threw, a touchdown pass to Willie Snead. I think it was in the Browns game that was just perfect. Cannot be improved upon. Dropped it just over the head of one defensive back, just in front of another. Perfectly placed. I don't know. It's not one of these like only Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson can make the throw, but it was a high-level throw, the kind of thing where, 3 years ago, whatever it was, when he was coming out of the draft and, he needs to go to receiver, can he throw, whatever. Now that guy, I'm convinced if he was just a normal athlete, you know what I mean, and just had to rely on his passing, I think he could be a good NFL quarterback. I think he's that good of a passer now.
The thing that really jumps out to me about Lamar Jackson, if you go back to last year where he kind of announced to a national audience, I'm a passer. That 5-touchdown game against the Los Angeles Rams where he was just throwing dimes left and right. Those were some phenomenal throws. And McDowell, you're absolutely correct. People just need to shed that doubt. He is a quarterback. He's an athlete, and he's a quarterback, and he's an elite quarterback. You don't win the MVP award if you suck. That's just the bottom line.
Hey, just one quick addition, and I noticed that somebody's checking in from Myanmar. That's nice to see.
Shout out to Sean Schloss. Thank you, Sean.
All these points wrapped up in one. I don't doubt that he's going to have great success in the playoffs going ahead, but I do think that's basically the reason, right? That people have still held out some skepticism about him. You've got to demonstrate it in that kind of heat of the moment. Obviously he's capable. I truly believe he will, but he hasn't yet, and that's a little bit of a difference till you see it done.
So it sounds like you're one of those.
Well, people say,
I just remember.
That's right. And maybe we talked about this at some other point on earlier in the week. I can't quite remember, but I just remember once they got behind, some of the body language in that playoff game against the Titans, it was exactly the opposite of what you see from Patrick in those situations. And it's just a glimpse at a part of a game, right? So I don't want to make it sound like it's absolutely that's who he is or anything like that. I don't think that at all, but I just think that's the place where he needs to show more growth.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson hasn't necessarily. I mean, we talked a little bit about how they got behind to the Chiefs last year, but in the situation where he has to pass the ball and that's the only out, that's the situation he still has to prove. And they got down 3 possessions against the Titans last year that they were in that situation. To me, the Ravens are good enough to where they can go through an entire postseason without ever putting themselves in that situation. I mean, being down 2 scores in the first half, you can come back from that. It's whether or not like the situation last year, or you get down 2 scores in the fourth quarter. The Ravens' whole strategy, of course, and the way they're built is not to ever be put in that situation in the first place. Because right now, I mean, we talk about Lamar Jackson's passing numbers. I mean, he led the league in passing touchdowns last year. Obviously, he passes against different coverages than most NFL quarterbacks just because of the way he can run the ball.
Okay, hey, and Sam McDowell, let's one more thing on let's switch to Patrick Mahomes and the story that you just wrote that's been posted. That was really interesting. You know, Mahomes, we've seen him beat teams with his arm. Last Sunday, he beat the Chargers with his running ability, and that's happened a couple of times before. But there's actually another quality that Patrick Mahomes possesses that really gives him an advantage, and it comes from an unlikely place. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I wish there were more like readily available actual hard data on this. I found something just from 2018 or 2019, actually, the last November. But Patrick Mahomes is really good at the hard count, really good at getting free plays. And I think it's going to show up more this year, like you guys, Blair and Vahe, saw last week, because they're playing in empty stadiums. You can hear them more now. It used to be that you could use that hard count at home, but using it on the road was basically an impossibility, especially a week like this week when you're going to play in a Monday night crowd. But you're going to see it this week. Mahomes has been using the hard count. He drew the Chargers off sides 4 times last week and got 3 free plays. And, man, when Patrick Mahomes gets a free play, he goes for it all. And he did it. He did it a couple times last week. One got intercepted, and it was just funny to me because the Chargers are kind of going nuts, thinking they're up by 8. They got the ball back. They're in Chiefs territory. And there's Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the field just signaling offsides. He knows it immediately. And that's what else has been really, John Harbaugh said that on the call this week too, that a lot of quarterbacks will just take the 5 yards, but Mahomes snaps the ball as soon as he knows he's got the guy and takes the free play. And we've seen referees, especially over the past 2 or 3 years, blow those plays dead more often because they want to protect the quarterbacks. So not only does he have a skill in drawing the defense off sides, but he also has a skill in ensuring that he's going to get the free play out of it. But it was interesting just writing that story. I talked to his high school coach, and it was a play that they ran throughout their high school, throughout Patrick Mahomes' high school career. They called it freeze. He actually had a hard data on how many times they'd run it. I think they'd run it 41 times. They'd gotten 9 offsides calls from it. They'd scored 5 touchdowns on it, including the first and last time he ever ran it. So it's something he's been doing his whole life. And he actually said yesterday that his voice being so unique actually helps him in that situation because it just stands out so much. And I thought that was pretty funny.
It was. All right, guys, time to play a little candy corn. Yes, Herbie's favorite part of the show. And this is where you get to know these guys a little bit better. Not that you'd want to, but we're going to ask them a question. And I'll tell you what, guys, today, not only the question that I supplied last night, but let's do that. Plus, how about a score for Monday night's game at Baltimore? So I'll ask you the question. And the question, of course, is in honor of as a tribute to Gale Sayers, who passed away earlier this week. Depending on, I guess, your age, your generation, you know him for different reasons, right? If you're a little bit older than me, you knew him you remember him as a great Chicago Bears running back. You remember him as a great running back at University of Kansas. And if you're my age, and Vahe, I think we're going to lead off with you, but I'll say I knew him the first time I really got to know Gale Sayers was through the movie Brian Song, which was just, I think, one of the great sports movies. It was a made-for-TV movie in 1971. And so I asked these guys to think about their favorite sports movies. And so let's do that. Let's go down the list. And what's your favorite sports movie? And how about the score of the Monday night game? Vahe, let's start with you.
Well, I'm going to say first, I thought about this a lot, and I wanted to just say the word flubber, so I thought about Son of Flubber. I thought about Any Given Sunday, but that was only because I'd like to hear Therese do Al Pacino from that movie, and we don't have that opportunity. I really do. The movie that stands out the most, I think it's sort of a semi-recency bias thing, really is Brian's Song, just because of the impact it made on me, and I think you can identify with that too, Blair, at that age. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, let's see, Rocky, Miracle, 42, and Caddyshack among them. But right here, right now, I'm going to go with Brian's Song.
Okay. Slipping in Caddyshack as a sportsman. I love it. It's good. All right. We'll turn to the youth. Sam McDowell.
First of all, Vahe said 1971 was recency bias. I just want to point that out. I hate to be as basic as somebody on this show last week picking McDonald's as their favorite fast food restaurant. But the Rocky franchise for me is always going to be my favorite sports movies. And actually, you know what? The Creed was an incredible movie. When the first Creed is probably about my favorite. Somehow in the Rocky franchise, they always make him the underdog. It's no matter what movie, he could be the world champion going into the movie. By the end of the movie, for the last fight, he's the underdog. The underdog story is hard to get away from. But as a bonus, since Vahe threw in about 4 bonuses, Mighty Ducks. I always loved Mighty Ducks as a kid. Still think it's good. Final score for the game, I think the Ravens are going to win. You can't pick Patrick Mahomes to lose by more than a possession since he's never done it before. But it feels like a game-winning field goal type of game to me. So I'm going to go like 30-27 Ravens.
Okay. Hey, Vahe, let's go back and get your pick.
Yeah, I've got the same score except without the 9-point play by the Ravens. I've got Chiefs 27-21.
Okay. All right, Herbie, what you got? Sports movie.
If you build it, they will come. Okay, Field of Dreams was probably at the top of my list, but nobody plays washed-up Ohio State quarterbacks better than Keanu Reeves. So I got to go with Point Break as well as The Replacements, and it's a tie. Go Shane Falco, baby. As far as the final score, I'm going to agree with Sam. I think the Ravens are going to win this game. I'm going to go with a score of 35-31.
Okay.
The Replacements is worse than your candy corn answer. That is awful. That is your favorite. I mean, that is awful.
Shane Falco, baby. How can you not like Shane Falco?
How am I the only one that spoke up on that answer? I mean, that is awful.
I don't want you to
I never saw it.
just how bad candy corn is, though. Let's not get out of control.
All right, Melly.
So, and I promise I'm not saying this just because of what Herbie just said. But my sports movie hot take is that Field of Dreams is garbage. That's what I think. But I love there's too many to pick just one. I love
Oops, hey, lost your audio. Herbie, did you do that?
We lost him. We lost him.
Yeah.
This take was so bad that we lost him.
Shoeless Joe Jackson heard you say that Field of Dreams was garbage.
Okay, yeah, he can come out of the cornfield or whatever and speak up. I think there's so many great ones. The ones that I don't think we've mentioned so far, I want to make sure. Remember the Titans, great movie.
On my list.
White Men Can't Jump.
Also
The Natural, unbelievable. Hoosiers, Bull Durham, Varsity Blues. But I think it's just like a watchable, like rewatchable. You know, if it's on cable, I'm hooked. You know, for the next 2 hours is Major League. God, that's a good movie. I'm gonna the score. And somebody just said this. Was it Herbie? 30-27. That was the score that
was mine.
That was
Okay.
Sam Mack.
That's the second time you've confused me with Herbie on this call. By the way.
Give proper credit.
You guys are basically the same person to me.
My God, damn.
And I'm saving this to last, just because you may just kick me out, and if you do, you know, you're tough but fair. But I've never seen Brian's song.
Wow.
I knew there'd be one among us, but I thought it would be 2.0 instead of you.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Wow.
All right, so
Yeah.
that's your assignment for today. It is available.
Too recent for you to see that one.
The entire 74-minute production is available on YouTube, so that'll be your assignment today. And when you do see it, consider it's 1971 and not 2020. The production value. It was a made-for-TV movie, and
He's already lowering the expectations.
You gotta do it.
hey, so all the movies on my list have been accounted for. I'll add 2 more just because I thought League of Their Own with Gina Davis and Tom Hanks was hilarious. The women's professional baseball league movie, And I'll just remember this from just a good sports family movie. If you haven't seen Cool Runnings, about the Jamaican bobsled team, that was in the '88 Olympics. A lot of fun, and we had a great time as a family watching that. So, hey, look, I've also heard the I guess one of the going last comes with its issues, and the score that's actually online right now is Ravens 30, Chiefs 27, and we haven't talked about this at all. And I know that Sam Mellinger, you wrote about the kickers, or Harrison Butker. Butker is obviously phenomenal. Had the 258 yarders last week. His career accuracy percentage on field goals is over 90%. That's unbelievable. In Brian's song time, that extra points weren't 90% made, but there's only one kicker in NFL history with a greater accuracy, career accuracy, and that's Justin Tucker of the Ravens. So fantastic kicking duel if it comes down to that between Justin Tucker and Harrison Butker. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Appreciate it. Had a great time. Listen, the coverage of the Chiefs, not just this week, but every week throughout the year, is fantastic on kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star because of the guys that are on the screen right now. And today, it's Friday. That means Mellinger Minutes for Your Ears is dropping today. Who's the guest today, Sam?
The voice of the Ravens. And his name is Jerry Sandusky. He spells it with a G. He's no relation to the Penn State coach. Just want to put that out there. He's really good at what he does. He's smart. It was a really good conversation. We broke down the game.
Looking forward to it. So that'll be on kansascity.com today. Make sure you listen to it. And if you want to listen to this conversation again, it'll be presented as a podcast on SportsBeat KC later today. So for Vahe, Sam, and Herbie, and our producer, Beth Welsh, thanks a lot, and we will talk to you again after the game on Monday night.
Thanks, Beth.